I'm Suzi Landolfi, and welcome to Be Crazy Well. Now, why would a therapist say that? Because we all have mental health struggles, even therapists. The good news is we have so much more information about how we can be crazy well. On my podcast, we don't focus on what's wrong with us. We want to know what happened to us. We're going to explore how trauma affected us, both negatively and positively. That's right. I said positively. It's called post-traumatic growth, and it's a real thing. Be Crazy Well will share mental health wellness practices, the newest mental health research, and most importantly, how we all get to create the person we deserve to be and the life we deserve to live. So join the mental health evolution and be crazy well. Oh, record to the computer. Yes. Okay, so I think it's just remarkable that we're not more accepting of being crazy well. I think that this idea that there's any normality anywhere is definitely going to cause us and cause me more high blood pressure. I want to be crazy well. And by the way, crazy could also mean that you're courageous, that you're a disruptor, that you're going to not take any shit, that you are going to make shit out of nothing, and people are going to call you crazy. So I couldn't be happy to have the two craziest people I know. That's a pretty high compliment in my world. On with me right now and Be Crazy Well. I'm here with Luz Helena Thompson and Trina McDonald, and they are the OGs. I'm going to call them the OGs of a movement that no one wanted to talk about. People still don't want to talk about. They don't want to deal with it. They want to deny it. And I am not going to allow that to happen as long as I have a platform on any level. And even though it's not something that happened to me, because I am a civilian, and as most people know that listen to this podcast, civilians irritate me too. So I just want you to know that. And that's why I hang out with you guys. I want them to introduce themselves and tell you why they're the OGs of the military sexual trauma healing, growth and healing, change, and let's stop this shit once and for all movement. So who wants to start? Trina, you're older. We'll have to let you have the floor first.
Throw me under the bus. Hi, my name's Trina McDonald. Thank you so much, Suzi, for letting us be a part of this podcast today. A little about me. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. Obviously, and we're talking about military sexual trauma. I am a survivor of military sexual trauma. But I'm also, as you said earlier, very courageous. I didn't let this be something that beat me. It did for a while, but I kind of rose out of the ashes like a phoenix and said, nope, not today, demon. So basically, I was a part of a documentary called The Invisible War, which was the first time I'd ever told my story about what had happened to me. And I had this opportunity to talk about military sexual trauma in a completely different way. In the beginning, it was a lot about the trauma and the stories and all the things that happen around that. But as time went on, it was in and out of the media. There's been more since then, Vanessa Guillen, even more people that have lost their lives, or people that have taken their lives, or people that continue to struggle today. So what we decided to do, Luz Helena and myself, is create a project as Veteransrecoveryprojectorg to help survivors deal with what it's like to just be in recovery, to not talk about the narratives, change that completely and talk about recovery and self-care.
What's the name again? Say the name again.
Veteransrecoveryprojectorg.
Okay.
Yes. So, and basically how I look at it is, self-care can be anything. It allows you to reclaim your life, anything that helps you rebuild the foundation of who you were long before any of these things ever happened, and to help you find a piece of calmness and heart and gratitude for who you are today. So with that, I'll hand it over to Luz.
Hi, Hi, my name is Luz Helena Thompson. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, also a survivor of military sexual trauma. Much like Trina, it affected me, and it took, I would say, probably somewhere close to about 16 years before I was comfortable even opening up, starting to talk about it. And I lived with this thing that I didn't even understand, this PTSD and just all of the trauma responses. And it was, it was not the easiest journey to come out of that. But what I think has been the most important thing is that in that process of trying to heal and trying to take one step at a time and start therapy and start going to different retreats and, trying new things, I stumbled upon, this amazing experience to gentle wild Mustangs. And that is where, we always talk about meeting up on the mountaintop in Caliente, California. And that was when I had actually met Trina in person for the first time. We'd known about each other and what each other were doing as far as advocacy work. But to actually come face to face with someone and for the first time to say, yes, we went through something very similar. But what set us apart in that moment was I was like, wait a second, you have joy in your life. Like you're smiling, you're doing these good things. Like you found happiness and, and I kind of was like, wow, where are all those people? And so it was great to meet her. And we hit it off from the bat and, and kind of really talked about this idea of, well, if you're doing this and I'm doing this, maybe there's other people out there that want to heal in the same way, where they're not being brought into environments where they're constantly talking about the trauma, but for the first time being challenged to talk about self-care and recovery. What does that look like? What are your struggles with it? How are you doing it well? And it's been an amazing experience the last couple of years. And I'm absolutely honored to be on this call with the both of you. And Suzi, when I met you, it was also a life-changing event for me as well. So I'm just very thankful to be here today.
Well, for me, both of you have added to the growth and healing in my own life. And even though I haven't gone through what you've gone through, certainly having a betrayal, having a huge betrayal. And what I wanted to ask you guys, if this is likened, when I talk to people as a therapist about betrayal, when parents do something or siblings do something to us, and that's supposed to be our safe place. It's supposed to be the sanctuary of our life. Our home life should be the safe place we can go because the outside world isn't that safe. There's no reason why it has to be committed to our well-being. I would imagine, and I can only imagine it, that's the closest I can get, that when the perpetration happens in the home or it happens in the military, right, where you signed up with your brothers and sisters, because it can go either way, it can go anyway, like men on men, women on women, men on women, women on men. That is an even deeper betrayal than a stranger. Does that make sense? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. That's something we've talked about for the last couple of years is making a correlation between things that happen in families with family members and why it's beyond devastating when it's someone that inherently you are taught from the start, whether it be in your home or when you join the military, you're taught that this is your family. These are the people who, you go to, be it good or bad. These are the people with which you should have the utmost trust. So I do. I think that that's something that we talked about for years, and really unraveling this is at the core of it. Why is MST such a difficult experience to navigate? And a big part of that is I think that there aren't very many people that are actually talking about that correlation of family and military family. And, and Trina, I know we've talked about this quite a bit. So.
Well, yeah, we have talked about it quite a bit. I mean, on a personal note, so I come from an abusive family. I come from sexual assault or sexual abuse in my family. And it was one of those things that I think when you come from that, it's like you kind of know the body language and what's coming and, and that energy that is existent. And then you go into the military and you're like, safe, I've got a family, I got a unit. These are people I would give my life for. And what ends up happening, it's such a deep scar, because you think about, I would lay my life down for another individual that I know, and that's normally what you would think about when you think about family. I would do that for my grandchild any day, but when you get into an environment where you have people that we've gone through the same training, be either male or female, we've done all these things together, and that ultimate betrayal of taking something from you that you weren't willing to give is heartbreaking. It breaks you as a person, as an individual, and I think that one of the things that Luz and I've talked a lot about is, how do we take that and bring it into something that we're not just rehashing,
Right.
What happened to you, what's going, what's next? Let's talk about self-care. Let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about PTSD and what it did. And like when Luz and I met, it was one of those things where it was like, oh yeah, I can certainly have joy in my life and I can certainly laugh. And that's a big part of our call, is we get the opportunity to laugh and share and, the hurdles, the obstacles, all those things, and be like, you got this, and I think that's the key about getting over such a heart-wrenching experience.
Both of you know, because I was one of the creators of the curriculum for Boulder Crest based on post-traumatic growth. I'm very glad that we're trauma informed. I mean, I think knowing what happened to you, which has now happened to be one of my favorite books out there, is very important to know what happened to you. And the effects, because then you know what you have to do to actually change that, as opposed to just have a diagnosis, right? So you can have PTSD and PTG and post-traumatic growth in the same place. At the same time, in the same body, in the same spirit, in the same mind. That's my story in my childhood. That you're right, all the shit that I went through in my childhood and the abuse also gave me some of my greatest gifts. I got two of my greatest gifts from my worst abuser. I have to talk about those and do more of those. I have to utilize those gifts more. And what happened to me is still there, still true. And I'm actually creating more post-traumatic growth, more recovery, taking back, recreating that which you deserve. So one of my things now is I'm always like talking and helping and doing it for myself, creating the person I deserve to be and creating the life I deserve to live, regardless of what happened to me and what continues to happen, both positively and not positively. I don't run the zoo. Actually, I probably do I run some zoos. I mean, I think the point here is when I hear you talk about self-care and which goes along with self-worth and goes along with this idea of creating more of what you deserve. Tell me what you do in this Veterans Recovery Project that really holds us to practices. Like this is a wellness practice is what I'm seeing. And I've been to one of your meetings and I love that. I mean, you get good at what you practice. Therefore, if you keep telling the story and the shittiest story, you're going to get really good at that, but you're not necessarily going to get on the other side of it. So tell us what you do.
Well, basically, I mean, if what we do is we meet once a week for an hour and we bring people into the group that, are survivors. And, we lay out, we introduce ourselves. We remind ourselves that we are veterans, that, we do exist in this world and we're female, and that's great. We talk about self-care that we're doing in a specific, like this week, this is what I'm doing for self-care. We talk about the ground rules. There is no, trauma talk. Those things we don't talk about in this group. We talk about self-care. We talk about recovery. We talk about, just how, why do we enjoy what we're doing? We laugh a lot. we talk about just the tough stuff, but our day to day, it's not like, well, 20 years ago, this happened to me. It's today. And I think that's the key factor in the group that we do, and it's not that we just go, oh, self-care is this and it's great. We also talk about challenges and barriers and goals and gratitudes, because those are the things I think that make up that foundation of who we are. We do grounding exercises to get in that, leaning into that moment and talking about how we can get better on a daily, and we talk about, a lot about our committees, and we all have, excuse my mouth, but we all have fucking committees, and everybody's is different. Mine, I'm almost 22 years sober, and I've got my recovery committee going on, that's like, oh, let's see how we can enable you to think poorly of yourself today. And it's like, I don't want that today. And, so we talk a lot about those things that make us who we are. We're not our trauma. We are, rebuilding a foundation of ourselves on a daily basis. We talk about how we can, celebrate one another's recovery and celebrate each other's successes, what we're learning, what we're not learning, what we're struggling with. And we kind of just roll that all into a ball and go, hey, let's laugh about this shit because it's hard. PTSD is hard, but it doesn't have to define you. And I think that's one of the key factors in the things that we do. And, Luz, you can add more to that, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think almost going back to the question you asked before, what we found is that the foundation of healing in itself is trust, right? Whether it's trust with others, trust with ourselves is probably the most important one that we work on. So when we invite people in to this call, we establish a place that's extremely transparent. So what we do is we offer people an ability to see the template before they even join. So this way they understand what's going to be asked, how is this going to be led, and we stick to the template and we respect people's time, that we stick to the hour. We have, like Trina said, in building that trust, a big part of it is we've given names to some of these common themes that come up for us. The committee, the people in our head, the noise, the sound, those voices that, sometimes are coming from a place of a trauma response as opposed to healing. And we ask people to challenge the committee, figure out who's sitting up there, who's got the mic today, because it changes on a daily. Sometimes it changes hourly. But we give names to things like that. And I think what that does is it really, without even saying it, it allows people to understand that they are not alone in that. The other thing we do is we offer, and this is for whether you are new to the call or you've been on the call for years. One of the things that we do is make sure that we explain in the beginning, these are the ground rules, but also you are welcome to be here and not share if you want. And a big reason that we do that is because we're consciously aware that there are things sometimes that maybe happen an hour before the call, right? And you haven't had time to process it. So rather than force somebody into a state where they're processing something for the first time among a group, we give them the respect that, maybe part of the processing begins with listen. And maybe it's okay to invite people into a space where they can go, okay, I can kind of grasp this a little better because I'm hearing this person's dealing with something very similar. This is how, it became a challenge and barrier. But we ask specific questions like, what was the challenge and barrier? How did you overcome it? Is it preventable? Which is my favorite question. And what did you learn from it? And I think in doing that in a shared space with like-minded women, it gives a permission to come to the call and say, hey, you know what? This has been a tough week. Or, hey, it's been a couple weeks that have been tough. This has been a great week. And allowing people to have this freedom to share or not share, listen, or, just to have it all right there, I think is a bit it's a bit of a different approach because we're not trying to, you know, have people come in and not know what to expect. And that's part two of respecting, you know, we're all military. So we want to know what's the plan, what's going on, what are we going to talk about, what am I going to expect? Because the last thing we want is for anyone to have anxiety coming to the call.
Right.
We want to leave them better than we found them. That's cool.
You know, and for me, so, okay, I know it's hard to believe, but I am a licensed therapist. And so it's because I'm always breaking the rules. People go, really? You're really a licensed therapist? Yeah, I'm going to disrupt a little here and break the rules. What I love is that this is peer-to-peer support.
Mhm.
This has been there, done that. This is, I'm not going to ask you to do anything I'm not doing. The medical model is wonderful. If my arm falls off, trust me, I want someone in the medical community to sew it back on. I get that. At the same time, I can stand in front of my primary care physician and they can say, you know, Suzi, you need to stop smoking, stop drinking, and lose 100 pounds. And that person can go home and smoke a pack of cigarettes and drink a bottle of wine and eat a cheesecake.
Sure
It's just true. It's just true. And we've all sat there in the office going, this person's going to tell me to get well. I'm not so sure that's going to work so well. That's not happening in this group. So you're not going to have that expert. You're your own expert. You're the one, right? You're it. You're there for your self-care, your healing, your recovery. So speak to me about how this group, you know, continues to foster that, and how has it changed over the years for you, even personally for you? What does your self-care look like differently now since you've been doing this group than it was when you first started? Has it changed for you?
I know for me, I definitely, because we're not trauma bonding with one another. And unfortunately, in other spaces that happens, and I've been exposed to that. And what it created is, for me, an anxiety level of, well, I'm having a good couple days. Do I really want to go spoil it by going into this environment where I know everything's about trigger warning and that, and because our calls are not like that, it's given me personally a very different approach where I'm not wanting to come to the call. Like even if I have the worst day with us implementing that new rule of like, you could just be there and not say anything. I'm like, okay, those are days I don't have to cancel. Those are days that I can come there, and the lead by example part, I can just sit and say, hey, today I'm just going to listen. So for me, it's reduced the fear of doing something like that. And it's created a space where I know no matter what, when I get on those calls, my cheeks are going to hurt, not because I'm sitting there, yelling, but because
No, not those cheeks, not the other. They're not hurting because you're sitting there. You're
right?
Sitting there.
Just laughing, and I know that for me personally too, I've been able, over the last couple of weeks, there's been some heavy stuff that's gone on, and normally I wouldn't have shared it, but I've developed a trust with the women that are on the call, where I actually was really proud of myself that I faced something that was really challenging, and I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. And the second I got on the call, I shared it. And I actually got off the call feeling like, you know what? I'm glad I did that, where normally I don't think I would have in another space. So for me, it's impacted everything in a more positive way. And it's shown me that, even though we started this call, we are all equals on this call. And that is very different than, you sit down in front of a therapist. There isn't that same feeling all the time.
That's true.
So the feeling of being amongst peers and equals is, has made it where this is something I want to be consistent with.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that's really grown from the call were, I think with any type of group, you get on a call and it's like, what kind of dynamic are we going to have here? And what we found was the women in the group started to getting involved. You know, we have somebody that writes down our goals every week because none of us can remember shit, you know, and, you know, and it's, you know, so she's always like on task with those kinds of things. And she was probably one of the most shy people that we had encountered, you know, on the call, and she's doing amazing, you know. And but I think the key factor for the call in itself is, like, you know, we're talking about trust, and, you know, we learn how to trust each other, but we also learn how to trust ourselves. And I think that's one of the biggest keys, you know, because I don't believe any of us walked into this state of a call to go, okay, I totally got you. It's like, you know, it wasn't like that, because we're so apprehensive about what it was like to be around other veterans. It's like, are they going to hurt me? Is this going to be unsafe? And we provide a safe environment for people to come to these calls. You know, for me, just how it's helped me is because I'm in recovery, and I apply that to like everything in my life, you know, and I get this opportunity to lean into it with other women. But what I've got from it is I ground every week. I'm constantly grounding myself, or I'm constantly writing a new grounding exercise, because we don't pull that from other people's words. We pull it from ourselves, because we're the ones that are creating this path for one another to walk along with, you know, each other, and hold our hands and be like, I got you. We got this. Let's talk about it. You know, and let's be okay. Let's be okay today. So, yeah.
We share resources. That's, you know, that's something else that's grown quite a bit. Is we use Zoom as a platform, and we use the chat, and we share resources about just about everything. But I know, you know, for a majority of the women, we really have leaned a lot in unwrapping what trust looks like. We've leaned a lot on Brene Brown's The Anatomy of Trust, and really breaking it down step by step. And I think that being able to share those resources with each other as they come up on the call, you never know whose life that night it saved, right? Who needed to hear that information at that time. And it's just great. I think, you know, seeing the biggest change we've seen is everyone came to the call one way, and they are definitely different as a result, I think, of continuing to do this. There's been a positive, you know, the post-traumatic growth. There has definitely been evidence of post-traumatic growth with every person on the call, myself and Trina included.
Well, I think that like you were saying, is people got engaged, you know, and they started and it wasn't just like, I'm only going to practice this when I do my call. I mean, it became practice, you know, that they're doing every single day, you know, so that they can apply it to their lives. You know, we can discuss it. We have this wonderful opportunity to just be, you know, sisters in arms, you know, kind of a thing going on, you know, and I appreciate that shit, because we don't, you know, you talk about a barrier. It's like, you want me to trust you? Wall, you know. And it's like, no, we want that, you know, we want that unit that we so desired when we went into the military. I know I did, you know. And when Luz and I decided to do this call, it truly was about, you know, I don't want to be, you know, if I have PTSD, I don't have to be sick because I'm afraid to lose my benefits. It was, I want to be well so I can grow through my life, you know, because money doesn't mean anything if you're not well. You know, so that, I think that's one of the key things that we talk about is, you know, here's your resources, or we are resources. We have a text group outside of the group itself, because people want to be engaged with each other, you know. And it's like, I think that's one of the key things in this group, that it's amazing. You know, people talk to one another.
No, I know that myself included, because I helped build one, there's a lot of veteran retreats. And after the Invisible War, which I hope people will watch and go back and see, the woman who actually put up the money for the movie put you guys who were in the Invisible War through, I believe it was a 2-week retreat, which is where I met you, Trina. And then I met Luz at another retreat. And then we brought her to another retreat at my a wild horse rescue called Lifesavers Wild Horse Rescue. And so what's interesting to me is we know that model. It's a great model. I'm appreciative of it. And I need daily practices. if I don't have daily commitment to my practices, my thoughts and feelings will go haywire, and I won't be doing what I deserve to do in order to keep myself physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, and financially safe. I won't. Right? So you talk about the committees in your head. So this idea that most of us run our lives according to what we think and what we feel. Well, most of what you think and feel either was told to you or done to you. So most of those thoughts aren't even yours.
Nailed it.
And those feelings. So I love that you have a weekly, this is 24/7, you know, this is 7 days a week, this is 52 weeks out of the year. I mean, you guys are texting, you know, you are there much like in the military. Like, you just don't go to a military retreat when you were serving and come back, or a deployment and then you were done. You got time off, but you were there for a long time together. That's the point of building trust and a team. So I'm really grateful that you guys took this way of presenting support, which is weekly and daily, and with those texts. I'm thrilled with that, because I know that's what I need. And you know, you deserve, meaning all of us deserve, practices, not tools. I got a great bunch of tools. You got a whole tool shed, Luz, building your, you know, your wonderful glasswork. But when you're in the kitchen and bed, those tools aren't there with you. You got to go in there, right? And then, right. So yeah, tools are great. And I need emotional tools every minute of the day. So I need practices. That's why I don't call them tools. I call them practices. And that's what I get good at. And coping isn't good enough. Who the hell thought that word was important to have, or that that's a good way to design or describe your wellness? Oh, well, I've got good coping skills. That's bullshit. Like, right? Like, I'm not going to cope. I want to thrive. You know, I want to keep growing. You know, I want to like continue to create greater wellness all the time through these practices. So words matter. And I appreciate the words that you're using. I just recently, you said a lot about how much you laugh and how much joy you guys have. I don't know who came up with the word enjoy, which is very passive. Oh, I really enjoyed watching that. Like, why aren't you in it? Like, we got to be enjoyed, right? So you guys have a group where people are in it. They're not just watching someone lecture about MST and recovery and healing. They're in it. They're creating it themselves.
Yes.
And that's so important. So I appreciate that.
And
You're
it's very
badasses. You're women. Badasses.
It's definitely a space where, you know, although this is a different model, we very much stay in our lane in terms of we follow, you know, we came up, Trina and I wrote this template together, we stick to it. But with, you know, when we have people on the call, we very much advocate mental health, seeing a mental health provider, medication, if that's what's right for you, recreational therapy. You know, we talk about a lot of different alternative ways to get the same therapeutic benefit. And that's part of like our introduction is really, especially when new people come on the call, we ask them to just describe one thing that they do for self-care. For us, that allows us to learn just a little bit about what practice someone is already using. And it could be, you know, it could be anything from gardening to baking to drawing, surfing, you know, collecting driftwood on the beach. We, you know, we have, there's just such a range of things that I think the thing people get off the call realizing is that what they may not have realized is a practice in their life, one that is used for the purpose of self-care and recovery. By the time that hour's over, they're going, oh, so when I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking and I'm dancing in the kitchen and I've got a smile on my face, oh, that's a self-care practice. And, you know, that might not necessarily be something that people expect to get from that from one time coming on the call, but the realization that each of us possess those individual practices, and then we learn, you know, we learn to ask questions to each other, like, wait, you do what? You know, you break what? You know what I mean? And so it's
Surf and cook at the same time.
right. You know?
We go all in.
Oh, yeah.
And it's intentional. So what
Yes.
you're talking about is you get to do your life. You get to do your healing. You're not just talking about it, you're doing it. And you have to do different to be different. And we know that the brain even heals not from thinking and feeling differently, it's from your actions changing. And that's such a recovery thing, you know, that idea that you can't think your way into right action, you act your way into right thinking, right? Yeah, I mean, that's really clear. Now we've got all the MRIs to prove it. Right, so we have wisdom, like, and of course Native people knew this forever, tribal people, but now we've got science now to prove it. It's like, well, you know, okay, never mind. Don't get me going. Is there anything else you want to share? I mean, certainly what we'll do is we'll put the way to contact you, so when we air this, there'll be a whole write-up about you guys and a way for them to contact you. Is there anything else you'd like to share with them before we close?
I think for myself, take a chance. Just take a chance and come to the call. You'll, you know, if you stay, great. If you don't, you know that there's somebody out there that might need that call. You know, come laugh for an hour, you know, come, you know, be introduced to some other women veterans that have had your experience, but are living differently. You know, be a bee. That's, you know, come be a bee. And that's one of my favorite things to say. And just know that this isn't a life sentence. You know, having been assaulted, it's not a life sentence. You know, we want people to thrive. You know, we want people to live. You know, we don't want people to be another statistic, you know. And I think that that's something that we get from this call is it's just a peace of mind knowing that, you know, you've got my back, I got your back, you know, this shit's going to be cool, you know. So I think that's one of the key things.
You know, that might be a good thing, you know, Veterans Recovery Project, this shit's going to be cool. That might have to be, that might have to be your mantra there.
Yeah, that's my very intellectual words I'd like to use.
Love it. I love it. All right. Well, thank you both. I'm just adore you. You inspire me. I'm grateful to have you in my life and to know both of you. You've certainly made my wellness better. And I don't think we think that, even though I'm usually the one, you know, on the other end of the retreat or the other side of the table. It's absolutely clear that I could not keep my wellness well without people like you in my life. I mean, that's the give and take, and that's how we really heal and grow, is the connection between each other. So I really want you to know how much I appreciate you. And I just think you guys have always been crazy well to me.
Oh.
You know, you guys just fit right in. Fit right in. And our theme song, you should listen to it. You'll really enjoy it. The guy that created it and did it is Calvin Love, and it's called Be Your Best Self. And he's got BEE. BEE yourself, be your best self. Right, so it's a great song. So I always thank him at the end of every podcast. And you guys can come back anytime. And please, the Veterans Recovery Project, we're going to put in the in all the copy how to get in touch with you. There is it veteransrecoveryproject.org? Can we just say that already?
It is.
Okay.
It's .org. And before we go, I definitely want to mention, so we probably should have said this in the beginning, but we acknowledge that this doesn't just happen to women in the military. And so currently we have actually been working, I believe it's with Minority Veterans of America. Mm-hmm. And they started using the same template we came up with. They started a male MST call. So that I don't believe is running every week, but I think it's
monthly right now.
Monthly.
Yeah, they started it.
But that will follow the same exact template. You know, and what I like about this template is this template could be used with combat veterans. This template can be used in other areas. It isn't specific to MST.
Sure.
So if there's anyone that would like more information about the template, they can certainly contact us through the website.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, women. I appreciate so much. Trina McDonald, Luz Helena Thompson, two amazing women, and I'm grateful. Thank you so much. Okay, everybody, be crazy well. Get to those wellness practices. You deserve it. Create the person you deserve to be and the life you deserve to live. Bless you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.